We have some pretty massive trade news to take a look at here today involving the New York Rangers and the JT Miller and kind of Vancouver Canucks trade situation here with that reported trade that almost happened, was really close to happening, it seems like, from the reports and rumors Saturday, but obviously ended up falling through, did not happen. JT Miller stayed on the Canucks, and now we have some pretty big information, it seems like, on the reported offer that, was on the table, that was nearly accepted by the Vancouver Canucks on pretty much all the main assets in that deal. So we'll take a look at that and the full details there as well. The guys, kind of the reason, it seems like, on why this deal did fall through as well. So we have some big information to take a look at here, and also it gives you kind of some insight on Chris Drury's kind of mindset and where this team's at right now. So we'll kind of talk a bit about that as well, because I do think that is very important to talk about. So we'll cover that as well. But to start off here, let's take a look at the actual article here where it does talk about the reported trade offer that was obviously given by the Rangers over to the Canucks for JT Miller. And this article is from The Score, which I will have linked in the description. But they end up saying Rangers center Philip Hedl, defenseman Ryan Lindgren, and some future assets, including a first-round pick, could have been headed to Vancouver had the trade gone through, sources told The Athletic. Disagreement on the protection structure of the first-round pick reportedly proved to be a key hurdle in negotiations, which this is pretty wild that this is coming out, because this is really, a pretty massive trade here that would have went down and would have had a major impact on the future of this Rangers team. I honestly am very happy that this trade did not go through, and definitely comment down below your thoughts. Would you have been happy with possibly accepting this and, this being a reality where this trade actually goes through? Because in my opinion, I think that would have been bad for the Rangers' future long term. It really locks you up into some big contracts for guys who are aging and, who aren't really looking like they're playing necessarily their best hockey of their career right now. And, obviously guys like Zibanejad and JT Miller, that's kind of thing for me is I'm fine with picking up JT Miller, but for me, we had to see Zibanejad go out the door. It had to be Zibanejad going to the Canucks, or at least going to, another team. And making a 3-team trade would obviously make things a lot more complicated and a lot more difficult to do. But, there's just no way, in my opinion, you should be going out there with the spot the Rangers are in right now, and you're going out there to trade for someone like JT Miller, who, yes, he's a good player. And I've talked about it, who I'm not against, picking up. But this is a guy who, is going to be 32 in March. He has a pretty big, $8 million contract for a while now. I mean, his contract expires when Zibanejad's done, so that's kind of why it made a lot of sense to see Zibanejad go out the door in a package for JT Miller. Even if we had to give up, some really good assets alongside that, I think it would have made more sense. And obviously, with what we're giving up here in this package, that's quite a bit. So you might as well, I feel like, just kind of added Zibanejad somehow. I guess maybe that's what the deal breaker was. Maybe Zibanejad didn't want to go there, and that's also a whole other thing to it as well. But in my opinion, there's no way the Rangers should have been trying to make this trade happen unless Zibanejad is going out in another trade or to the Canucks there, because of those contracts and with the way they're going with their ages. To me, it just makes absolutely no sense locking yourselves into these kind of players. And maybe Zibanejad does turn things around and, JT Miller kind of heats up here, maybe if he did get traded and this trade went through. But, you 2-3 years down the road, I mean, those contracts could look really bad. So that's just something where you just, in my opinion, can't take that kind of a risk. And in my opinion, this makes Chris Drury, by looking at this kind of a trade and what this trade details were, I think he looks like a very desperate general manager right now. And to me, that is a little worrying as a Rangers fan, because when your general manager is in a big market like New York, a big hockey market, Toronto, Montreal, New York, those are pretty much the big three, right? So I think it's not a good spot to be in with the owner that, the Rangers obviously have in James Dolan, with it being, the New York Rangers, that kind of a franchise and organization. Being in a desperate spot is not a good thing at all. And with already having contracts, like that Zibanejad deal, to me, going out there and really making this big of an attempt to trade for someone like JT Miller. And again, it's not about just trading for JT Miller. It's about not getting rid of that Zibanejad contract in some type of a deal as well. To me, that is not a good spot to be in. I think this deal kind of really looks desperate, because I think it's giving up a lot of value for someone who, probably shouldn't have the most value right now, because there have been reports about, all the stuff that's been going on behind the scenes with Pettersson and JT Miller, which, obviously that has to affect his value in some way, and it's not like he's playing great hockey. So in my opinion, this is a lot to give up. You're giving up Philip Hedl, who is a at least 40, 50 point caliber guy, sometimes even 60 point caliber guy. If he fully stays healthy and can really get on pace there, he can be a 60 point kind of guy, something around there. Plays a decent two-way game. Obviously not the greatest face-off taker, but he's not that much worse than someone like JT Miller, in my opinion, especially when you consider the age and the contract. So right off the bat there, Philip Hedl being in there, I don't love that because of the age and the contract and all that kind of stuff there. And then you add Ryan Lindgren there, which that's fine. I mean, that helps the salary work out, and I'm not against trading away Ryan Lindgren. But then you're also talking about the future assets, and we do have kind of an idea on what those future assets could be. We'll take a look at those in a second, but also a first-round pick. And a first-round pick, Philip Hedl, like that, those two assets together, plus these prospects that we're going to talk about in a second here, in my opinion, that is way too much and definitely would have been a pretty big overpay with all the other circumstances going on as well, that with kind of the Rangers spot that they're in and the spot that the Canucks were in with those two players. In my opinion, this would have been a massive overpay because those two prospects, it seems like with the kind of news and stuff that we got out of Hartford kind of Saturday, it does kind of seems like that maybe the prospects that could have been involved, or those future assets that could have been involved, were prospects Adam Sikora and Yaroslav Melnikov. And if it was both those guys, plus the first-round pick, plus Philip Hedl, I think that would have been a huge overpay by the Rangers. Adam Sikora, former second-round pick, and, last season didn't have the greatest overall offensive performance, but I do think is still a really talented prospect. He's still really young, only 20 years old, doesn't turn 21 until September, but a 5'11 winger, but he's got a nice little feistiness to his game there, plays a nice kind of just utility kind of role there. He's just a really good all-around kind of player, in every area of the ice he's good, has a little feistiness to him, just a really great kind of all-around guy, kind of one of those utility players, can be a bit of a PK guy, a bit of a power play guy here and there, good 5-on-5, scrap a bit, battle in the corners, play, make a little bit, score a bit, you just do a bit of everything kind of player. So I think one of those guys is definitely, pretty valuable to have. He still has a bit of an upside as well. I think, him being only 20 years old, obviously had a lot of pro hockey experience, also playing over in Slovakia in the pro league over there. But this is a player who was, taking a pretty big step up offensively so far this season in the AHL, having 37 games played, but 8 goals, 12 assists, 20 points. Not bad at all compared to last season where he had 23 total points in 66 games played. So, 66 games played last season at 37 this season and already has, almost the same amount of points. So that's a big difference there. And I just think that is a great thing to see from a young guy. So trading him away while he's kind of taking that big step up offensively may not be the most ideal situation. So I definitely would like to see the Rangers kind of hold on to a guy like Sikora, especially if it wasn't a package like this. And then Yaroslav Melnikov, he's also a pretty talented prospect who is a little older, 21, turning 22 this summer, but big 6'5" winger there, former guy who played with the Providence College team there alongside another Rangers prospect in Brett Berard. But Yaroslav is, like I said, a big 6'5" winger there, pretty talented guy himself, and, definitely hasn't had the overall best kind of season offensively maybe, but 15 points, 4 goals, 11 assists in 37 games played, at the AHL level. He's a -20. May not be the best overall prospect, but there's a little something there. He's still young and definitely still can grow and develop and get better. So, he's still a decently valuable prospect, still very young. So, in my opinion, giving up those two prospects, a first-round pick and Philip Hedl, and I'm not really counting much value in Ryan Lindgren, but still all that for a guy like JT Miller, who's about to be 32 years old, who's not having the best season, who's having some locker room kind of problems. I don't think that's the best thing to trade for unless you are able to get rid of someone like Zibanejad. And that's kind of my thing where I understand all the reasons on why Rangers fans don't want to see JT Miller come back to the Rangers. But if it is getting rid of a guy like Zibanejad as well, I'm kind of willing to do that. I'm willing to kind of bite that bullet on it and, even give us good assets alongside Zibanejad to get rid of Zibanejad and get JT Miller onto this team. I'm fine with that, but I definitely would have to see a guy like Zibanejad kind of go out the door to see someone like JT Miller come to this team. And that's kind of why I do think, someone like Chris Drury, the general manager, is getting a little desperate because if he's offering up all that for someone who's having locker room problems, not playing his best hockey, and, obviously after the reported kind of 1-for-1 swap there, that's a pretty big difference, right? Going from a reported kind of 1-for-1 swap as a Zibanejad for JT Miller, and then flipping right around, not terribly, long after, towards, a massive package of Hedl, Lindgren, a couple prospects maybe, and a first-round pick. I think that's a pretty big difference there. So to me, it seems like Drury's getting a little desperate, which in my opinion is not a good spot to be in at all for a general manager. And the reported news on why this deal ended up falling through is basically that the first round pick kind of protection structure, I guess, both teams couldn't really come to an agreement on. So maybe the Rangers, kind of wanted like a lottery protection on it possibly, or like at least like a top 5 or top 10 protection. Maybe the Vancouver Canucks didn't want that. So that's probably why, things ended up falling through because of that protection there. Because the Vancouver Canucks, I guess, maybe it was like a future first. We don't exactly know obviously what exactly the year was, but maybe it was a future first, let's say, and maybe they wanted it unprotected so they could, bank on the Rangers being terrible. Or maybe it was this year even where the Rangers very well could end up missing the playoffs and, end up, hitting the lottery where, if it's, top 3, top 5 protected, the Rangers could keep that pick. So something like that is probably why, it was at least, some kind of, top 3, top 5 protection where the Canucks didn't want that. We don't know exactly, but either way, it is what it is. The trade has fallen through, which in my opinion, like I said, is probably a good thing for this Rangers team long term. This season, maybe, yeah, he helps us win a couple more games, but at the end of the day, like I've talked about, it's kind of consistently throughout like every single video pretty much I've talked about and kind of made over the last while is, this team needs to be looking more towards the future than right now. That has to be the kind of mindset, I think, for this team right now. I'm not the general manager. I'm not Chris Drury, not trying to say I'm as qualified as he is, but I think to put this franchise and team in the best spot going forward, you have to look towards the future and make moves kind of planning for the future, not just going after a guy, JT Miller, trading away a bunch of future assets and a bunch of very valuable assets as well for a guy like JT, who is almost 32 years old, who has a big contract and is not playing his best hockey overall right now. Anyways, I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed, definitely hit that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content. I do post every single day, so if you are a New York Rangers fan, definitely hit that like and subscribe button for a ton more content. And also definitely comment down below your thoughts on this video and as well on this trade that ended up falling through. That, the package was made up of Filip Chytil, Ryan Lindgren. The two kind of future assets presumably are Yaroslav Melnikov, Adam Sikora, as well as that first round pick that reportedly was going to have protections on it, but obviously was the ultimate end of this kind of trade at the end of things there. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next one. Let's go Rangers.